Hi everyone, once again this is Eric Sigman coming to you live from my house. This time I'm on my cell phone and I'm using my self-made selfie stick. And if you must know, it's a spatula and some packing tape, so hopefully it'll hold together long enough to get through this video. And I do apologize for a little bit of bumpiness, so if you experience a little bit of seasickness, I do apologize, but hang in there. Recently I've had some time to do some things that I haven't had a chance to do in a while. And one of those things was play a board game. Now, Monopoly is my favorite board game, and doing this history club with you guys got me to think about the history of Monopoly. So I did a little bit of research, and I'm going to share that with you guys in this segment that I'm going to call Who Knew the Monopoly Edition. So let's get into it. Many people credit Charles Darrow for creating Monopoly in the 30s, but however, that isn't 100% accurate. There was a young lady born in 1866 in Illinois who passed away in 1948 in Arlington, Virginia. Now, I mention Arlington, Virginia mainly because that's an hour and a half from my house. So I reached out to the cemetery where she's buried to see if her gravesite was open to the public. And if it is, I plan on going to take some pictures, which I'll share with you guys. Now, this young lady, her name was Elizabeth Lizzie Maggie, and she added Phillips later on in her life when she got married. In 1904, she patented a game called the Landlord's Game. This game was based off of the economics of Henry George and was designed to teach the income inequalities of the different people of that time. And then in 1906, she was able to publish and start to manufacture the game. And this game is unique for two aspects that might seem familiar to you guys in the current version of Monopoly. The first is there was no continuous path, meaning it didn't have a true start or finish to the board. Secondly, it allowed the owner to occupy a property and own it even if they weren't on that property. So in essence, if someone landed on your property, they couldn't steal it from you, you still owned it. So that was really unique and, like I said, similar to what you might recognize in today's Monopoly. Then in 1910, she approached one of the Parker brothers to try and sell the Landlord's Game to them. However, they declined. Now, you have to realize this was before cell phones and TVs and radios, and the only way to entertain yourself was either to read or play a board game. So many people were taught how to play the Landlord's Game. And eventually, a university professor learned the game, and he started using it in his classes as a teaching tool. And it went from university to university to university, eventually ending up in some universities such as Princeton and MIT. A few years after that, a second version was released, this time eliminating the second round, and it was actually called Auction Monopoly, because you would auction off the properties rather than to pay for them at the list price. Again, a unique and novel aspect to this. Then in 1921, the original patent for the game expired. Now that allowed anyone to make their own homemade version of the game. And with so many versions of the game, Lizzie decided in 1924 to repatent the Landlord's Game. And this time it included street names, some of them for Chicago streets or locations, since that's where she was from. And also it allowed for a special monopoly rule. Now, this special monopoly rule allowed you to charge higher rent if all three railroads and the utilities were owned. Sounds familiar. Also, it added chips to be placed on the board if a property was improved, similar to, I guess, what we would call a hotel or a little motel in today's Monopoly. Again, in 1924, she approached the Parker brothers about purchasing the game, and they decided to pass once again. So again, it went back to teaching the game person to person to person. And a young man in 1926 named Daniel W. Lehman learned the game while he was in Williams College. And he decided to create his own version. And this version, he used the Indianapolis streets. And he decided to sell them in 1932 with a company called Electronic Laboratories. He then sold the rights to Nap Electric. And what's really unique about Nap Electric is the changes that they made to the game. The first change that they made was they put 4 railroads on the board, 1 on each side. The second thing is they introduced the chance and the, sorry, I gotta look at my notes here, the community cards. Sorry about that. And also grouped the properties by symbol. Now we know them grouped by color. There was a young lady at the same time named Ruth Hoskins who lived in Indianapolis, and she took the game and brought it over to Atlantic City. And she created her own version using Atlantic City properties. And when she was there, she was teaching the Quakers how to play the game. But she made one big modification to the game. She actually eliminated the auctioning part of the game and went back to buying the properties at list price, mainly because the Quakers were not big on dealing with auctions. With this new version, the game expanded once again into Philadelphia. Philadelphia being an hour away from Atlantic City. And it was taught from person to person until it got to a gentleman named Charles Todd. Now, Charles Todd taught this game to a young lady named Esther Darrow. Now, Esther Darrow was married to Charles Darrow, who I mentioned earlier on. Now, he decided he was going to create his own version and call Monopoly. Now, all of these were handcrafted using silks, and the original pieces were charms out of his girl's bracelets. And he also approached the Parker brothers about selling the game, but again, they declined. So now the Parker brothers are 0 for 3 in deciding to purchase the game. In 1934, the game grew so much so that Darrow actually had to go to a printing company called Patterson and White, and they started actually printing the boards on carton board. And then he hired a graphic artist, and this graphic artist is instrumental in creating the locomotives, that you see on the train properties, the waterworks, the faucet, the light bulb for the electric company, the car for free parking, and chance, question mark, and the arrow on the go. So they really started to put in a lot of the pieces that you would see in today's current Monopoly board, which is why a lot of people credit Darrow for inventing Monopoly. Finally, Parker Brothers came to their senses in 1935 and decided to buy the rights to Monopoly from Darrow. They actually paid off Lizzie Maggi $500 for her 1924 patent. And they also decided to buy any other copyright version of the game so that no one else can make it. And one of those versions was actually the version that Daniel Lehman made. His version was called The Fascinating Game of Finance, which was actually shortened to just Finance. And that game was actually produced up until the 70s. So you might even still be able to find a copy of that game somewhere on eBay. Once they had the rights to Monopoly, Parker Brothers reached out to Waddington's in England, and they offered them the rights to Europe and the British Commonwealth, excluding Canada, to produce the game. And they accepted, and they produced the game, currently still, through all of Europe. Now, in 1936, there was a German version that was denounced by the Nazis and vanished very shortly after. And also the British during World War II would use Monopoly games and sneak in escape tools, either real money or tools, to their POWs in Germany. So even during wartime, Monopoly was used to help the POWs. So that really gives you an idea of the history up until World War II. Since World War II, Monopoly has grown leaps and bounds. Hasbro now owns it. It's in over 114 countries. Billions of people play Monopoly. There's so many things that I could tell you, but there's just so many. So what I'm going to do is walk over to my board here. So again, hang on tight here, and I'm going to see if I can swing my camera around. And I guess I can't, but I'm going to spin this around and show you that there are 82 different trivia points to Monopoly. So there's a lot to it. And one of them, you see this handsome gentleman. Let me get him in frame here for you. There he is. He was actually rumored to be designed after J.P. Morgan. So a little bit more trivia for you. So you can see I have my little Monopoly wall here. I'm going to take some steps back. Oh, show you the ceiling there. There you go. There's my Monopoly, little bit of a wall there. So that's a little bit of Monopoly trivia. But I'm going to give you some of my personal experiences on Monopoly and why I think it's, you know, one of the best games out there. So first and foremost, I'm going to show you here. I'm kind of a big deal. You can see I'm wearing my Monopoly t-shirt. But really, my love of Monopoly cultivated when I was young, but resurfaced 4 years ago. So 4 years ago, for my surprise 40th birthday, I received this gift from one of our club members. And let me try and get that in frame for you. It's going to be no good. There we go. And this was made by club member Iris Sigman. So if you reach out to her on Facebook, she can show you all the wonderful needlepoints that she's done. And that really got me thinking about my prior experiences with Monopoly, especially when I was in high school and college. And when I was in high school, I'm going to again try and show you this because I don't know why my phone won't just spin around. My friends and I, we created our own Monopoly board based off of Dante's Levels of Hell. And then above that, you can see I have a University of Delawareopoly. And I had that when I was in college, but unfortunately I lost it when I lost the majority of my things in Hurricane Irene, which will be for another story. So I went out and I decided I had to get one. And in the process, I found out that there were 70 different versions of college monopolies similar to that one. And actually, I decided to start to buy them all, and I'm only too short. So if you see a Hawaii-opoly or a Kansas State-opoly that looks like that, let me know because I need them, please. Please email me at worldwidehistoryclub@gmail.com. So those are just some of those things that I collected. And then I went a little further, and I decided that I'm going to see if I can get this in screen for you guys. I got some big monopolies down here. And I got some books and video games and sneakers. Sorry, not sneakers, socks and a blanket to go along with that. And then you can see Monopoly's even branched out into slot machines and chairs for the slot machine. So I was fortunate enough to get 2 of those. And then I was also fortunate enough to get, where are you? Come on, screen. A Franklin Mint set, which is, you know, pretty nice to have. But really, what I want to show you guys is this here. And this is what I want to show you. So as you can see, I have a whole bunch of different Monopoly games, probably about 150 of them. Now, the world record probably has about 1,500, so I'm nowhere near them. But I do have some European ones. I can get it in the screen. I do have a Germany one up here on top. Over here, as we come around, you'll see I have the red, white one. It says Fun School. That's European with a Turkish one, I believe, underneath. We got some sports, we got some movies, some TV shows. So Monopoly has really expanded and grown and continues to grow. Every time I walk into a store, I see another Monopoly version that I hadn't seen before. So I got a lot of work to do to keep up with Monopoly, but I wanted to share my personal experiences with you. If you have your own personal experiences with a board game or something you love, please remember to share it with us. You can do a video like this. You can write it down, whatever you feel comfortable with. We love to hear your stories. I do appreciate taking the time to listen to this one, and I'll get back with you guys soon. Thanks a lot.